Good evening, South Anchorage High School. Here it is once again. Nice to see you all. I am your hooded crusader, your masked avenger, and dare I say it, a member of SHIELD? And I am joined today with Dr. Luke Allman, who is going to welcome you all back and give you the rundown of how things are going to be working on these first few days together. I'm also joined by the crew. Oh, my hair is fantastic. This is what happens when you don't have a haircut since spring break, just so if anybody wanted to know. Joining us today is Dr. Luke Allman. Hello, Dr. Allman.
Good evening, everyone.
And we got all kinds of questions and a rundown on what's happening. But before we move into that, we do need to say hello to all of our friends who have stuck with us through all the fun times, the good times, and the hard times. Hello, crew. How are you?
We survived quarantine.
That's right. Back in quarantine, kicking it like it's old school. Could you believe that we can now say that we used to do this in the old days? Is pretty fantastic. But before we get too far, keep popping those questions into the chat on YouTube, folks, because we will answer those as we go. We're collecting those. We've also got some questions coming in on the Instagram for the Den, and we've had some questions that went out on southvote.com. So you can put your questions into any of those spaces. We're monitoring those. We're going to answer those. But first, I'm going to kick it over to the doc because he is going to tell us all about what we can expect tomorrow, day one of the 2020-2021 school year. Take it away.
All right, everyone. What I want to encourage everyone to do, as Mr. Butterfield has said, is put your questions in the chat as we kind of go through these formal remarks, and we will do our best to clarify any of the details. I prepared some basic remarks that I hope will cover a lot of the questions that came in the survey that was sent out in Monday's newsletter. Hopefully, if your question gets answered, we can move on to some of the others that don't get covered. Before I formally start tonight, I just want to thank everyone for joining us. It looks like we've got about 200 people out there watching. And also want to thank Mr. Butterfield and the team who were just introduced, because really without them, we couldn't do this on the live stream, and it would be much more difficult to interact with you and answer your questions in real time. And I'd also mention that I think we've got some South High School staff members who are watching right now who may be able to help us in the chat to answer some of the more specific questions. So I encourage them to jump in at any time to clarify those questions. And while I'm at that, I do also want to thank my staff. That includes the support staff, counselors, teachers, and the assistant principals that I work with. They've been working around the clock to make sure that we have a really good setup for students as they virtually return to class tomorrow. And I also want to acknowledge that the last 5 months, since really last March, when we entered the distance model, things have been very challenging. But I want to encourage everyone, as we get into this new model, this distance model, that we really are in this together. We'll need to work together. We know we've got challenges right in front of us right now, and we probably don't even know some of the challenges that are going to present themselves as we move forward. And that's going to be really, really crucial to making sure students both feel safe, they're in a healthy environment, and they're giving opportunities to learn. And that needs to be our main focus. So with that in mind, we will do everything we can here to make sure that we have the most predictable environment possible in what is a highly unpredictable time. So that effort to reconnect with students and learning starts tomorrow at 8 a.m. That's when period 1 starts for all students in the ASD in-person model. And really the priority tonight is to give you a run through of the first day and all of that information, and then, as I said, take your questions. So students will connect with their teachers for the first time tomorrow based on our bell schedule, and we encourage parents, if they're available during those times, to also connect with their student. Each teacher during those course welcomes is going to review course expectations, the syllabus, what the learning environment will look like, where you can find information about those classes, and they'll also review the Canvas courses and show you some of the content that they have ready for you. We also plan to record all of those course welcomes and post them. So if you are unable to make it during the day tomorrow because of work or other obligations, we would encourage all parents and students to revisit that content so they can see what the school year is going to look like. So let me give you the bell schedule. First period starts at 8 a.m. So the first welcome will be done then. Second period starts at 9:45 a.m. Third period starts at 11:40 a.m. And just to give you an overall picture, our school day really is going to operate from 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. each day. And that's both in the high-risk model, when students are home connecting via Zoom, as well as if they were in person. Each teacher, no later than tonight, will have sent their Zoom link to students and parents in each of their classes. So keep an eye on your emails for a Zoom link so you can join class tomorrow. And starting Friday, students will use that same link to link up with their teachers and attend their 3 classes, really through the rest of first quarter, because those 3 classes are the focus of first quarter, and the other 3 classes will start second quarter, but those will be different teachers. Those classes are going to meet 4 days per week in person, so that will be on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And each class will consist of at least 30 minutes of structured instruction, and a lot of teachers will use more than just that 30 minutes. And part of that class period will also be building in opportunities for students to ask questions, to work with each other, and to get the extra support they need. So again, that's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday on the bell schedule. And then on Wednesday, it will be an e-learning day. On an e-learning day, students will still have work to do. They should still log into their Canvas shells and check on the pace of the class. And in that same time, teachers will be doing professional development so that they can continue to learn about the environment we're in, do planning and grading, and also collaborate with their colleagues on the common challenges we have. I would also add that attendance will be taken on the 4 days per week that students are meeting with their teachers synchronously, so that Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and we'll treat absences like we always have. So if you are sick, or you're traveling, or you have something that's going to keep you from connecting to class, please do report that absence so that we know that you will need makeup work. One thing that will be very, very nice about this new system is that all of the content will be placed on Canvas. So as long as you're following along there, you'll get access to the content. And I would also contact the teacher if there's going to be video content or tutorial that goes with that makeup work. So just be aware of those different structures that are happening this year. As mentioned, the content is going to be hosted on Canvas. So there'll be 3 Canvas shells per student, 1 for each of their classes. And all students should have access to their Canvas shells right now. And they can use their district credentials to log into Canvas, and that's just their last name, period, first name, and their student ID will be their password. So as long as they have those 2 pieces of information, they should be able to go to the ASD website, search Canvas, and then log in through that portal. And that same username and password will be used for all of the other applications that we're using. I imagine Google Drive is going to be a fairly popular way of corresponding and collaborating on assignments. And so really the 2 main tools that students are going to need are Zoom and Canvas. And I would prioritize Zoom for tomorrow because that's going to be the means by which you connect with teachers. And then they can also help you navigate Canvas and troubleshoot that space as we get into the learning. I also want to mention our counseling team. They've been working to finalize schedules for students. And as I said earlier, students should have 3 courses per quarter. If you have more courses than 3 or you have less courses than 3, then please wait until after midnight. All of the course changes that have been done during the day get updated in queue overnight, and so the most accurate schedule should be there when you log in tomorrow morning. So check that out in Parent and Student Connect. And then once class begins tomorrow, you'll have 5 days to request course changes. And so that will be on August 26th. So by next Wednesday, if you either feel that you're misplaced or it's not the right course, then you'll need to contact your counselor to get a course change. Please also realize, since we're only doing 3 classes at a time, if you change 1 class, it's very possible that that could have a ripple effect and change your other classes. So just be judicious in which classes you're changing, but we are happy to make adjustments to meet your needs. Another item to be aware of, just outside of the schedule, is that if you have materials from last year, whether that's a textbook, a uniform, or even a computer, we do have a drop box, which we were putting at our front entrance from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. each day, and you can bring items and put them in that drop box. Our librarian, Ms. Frankenberger, is working to get those items back into the school, cataloged, and back to their homes. And then once we have gotten into class, probably early to midweek next week, we will be able to actually hand out materials through that same process. So as you're getting into your classes and you're figuring out what you need in terms of support, whether it's a textbook or some other item that needs to be checked out from the school, we can use that same process for getting those items to you. So look for more details on how that process is going to work in next Monday's newsletter. And we'll try to nail down the details so you know the hours and the means to get materials you need. So all of that information is really pertaining to the ASD in-person model. So that would be for the students who, if we're in a medium risk category and we do choose to come back to school, those students would come back to our classrooms. I wanted to spend just a little bit of time here sharing information about ASD virtual. So our ASD virtual students are still SAHS students, but they're going to be taking slightly different classes. So first of all, students in the ASD virtual program will be using APEX curriculum for their core content classes. So math, science, English, and history will be APEX. They also have honors offerings, AP offerings, and the rest in the core. And again, those will be delivered via APEX. And then eDynamic is the platform for electives this year. So there are a lot of general electives that are being offered through ASD virtual, and it's through eDynamic. That's a little bit different than the in-person model, because the in-person model was developed over the summer by ASD teachers. Although the APEX and eDynamic courses that are part of ASD virtual are being facilitated and monitored by an ASD teacher. So that's one other difference. ASD virtual students won't have the scheduled regular 3 class meetings 4 days a week, but they will be able to check in with their teachers, whether that's to ask a question, get some clarification, or to do a short tutorial session. And communication from ASD virtual for those students who have enrolled in ASD virtual should have come to your email inboxes over the last couple of days. With additional details about how class is going to start. And then in the coming days, as I learn more information about ASD virtual, I'll fold some of those details into my weekly newsletter that goes out on Mondays. So I know that's scant detail on ASD virtual, and I can tell you that about 10% of our students have chosen the ASD virtual option. Last thing I want us to say as just prepared remarks are 3 different places that you can get up-to-date information about school this year. Probably the best place is South High School's website, and so that is asdk12.org/south. That's asdk12.org/south. Also, if you visit the school district's website, I would encourage you to visit asdk12.org/2020start, and that is 2020 start. asdk12.org/2020start. That has the overview of both ASD virtual, in-person, as well as the homeschool options. I did forget to mention earlier that you can change your mind between quarters. So it'll be very difficult to switch between in-person and virtual within the quarter, but certainly between quarters you can do that. And then, as I've mentioned a couple of times before, as I was delivering these remarks, every Monday I'll be publishing a newsletter. That's called This Week at South. The first edition of that went out this Monday, so if you didn't get it in your email that's on file with the school district, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll try to update those email addresses regularly. I also publish that newsletter at drallman.com, which is a website I stood up last year when we first entered the distance model. And I am on Twitter at Dr_Allman, and I post the link to the newsletter there as well. So if you don't want to receive it via email, you can check in both of those places to get that information. So for me, that's the prepared remarks, and then we will see what's in the chat and try to address some of the other questions that you have tonight.
So, bringing it over, Grace, how are you feeling about what Dr. Allman just threw down for truth? Are we covering pretty much everything you see in that spreadsheet?
Yeah, academically, everything is pretty much covered. People are still asking about extra things like, is video awards still happening, or if there's an official freshman welcome. So I think people are still wondering about that kind of thing.
So when we talk about an official freshman welcome, and if there is one, I will kick that one back to Dr. Allman here in just a minute. But as far as Video Awards 2021, there will be a Video Awards 2021. What that looks like, we do not yet know, but I have it on very good authority that somebody got a hold of a giant outdoor movie screen for drive-ins. So no matter what happens, there will be a Video Awards 2021, even if we have to have a drive-in to do it. Okay, so that will take place, folks. Everyone can take a breath because the world will come back to some sense of normalcy when Video Awards returns. All right, so moving on to that question, will there be, Dr. Allman, will there be a freshman kind of like Welcome to South Day where we kind of all hover a long distance from each other and use a potato gun to throw confetti?
Not in the foreseeable future that I'm aware of, but if we get back under 30 cases on the 14-day rolling average and we're in the medium risk model, we will immediately start thinking about how we welcome our freshmen back. One thing that I hope to continue to be able to do is to offer town hall style meetings with freshmen and parents or senior and parents or different groups so that we can talk about your ongoing concerns, but that's certainly in the works once we get closer to coming back face to face.
That's fantastic. And so, Clara, how are we doing from the South Vote piece? Do you think we've hit everything that you can see in there?
No, there are some other logistics. One of the biggest questions people are asking are textbooks required?
Are textbooks required? And are we handing them out if they are? What's that look like, Dr. Allman?
So all of the course content should be housed within Canvas and linked there. And so if you wanted a hard copy, I suppose you could print them. I can see scenarios where students may want a physical textbook as long as the course content is tied directly to that textbook. And that's where we'll try to use the process that Ms. Frankenberger has developed so that if students want to come get a text, we can make an appointment. You can show up, we can have the textbook waiting for you, and you can pick it up from right outside the library door.
Cool. Fantastic. So it sounds like some stuff is in the works to make these kind of things happen. Anything else from you, Clara, before I move on and ask our social media hierarchy what's happening?
There are a lot of questions, but if students do not have a webcam or do not want to turn it on for privacy reasons, will a webcam be required for classes virtually?
So I'm going to tell you that right now, right? So we do not need to see you on your webcam. You do need to explain that you are there, and we need to hear your voice, and we need to take attendance because that's required for us. And when we ask questions as a teacher, you know, we expect some kind of reply. So anyone that's ever dealt with me knows that I'm one of those old school people who has like a deck of cards with everyone's name on it, and I shuffle it and I pull one out. So no one gets away from me in my class. So if you have your camera off and I pull your card and ask you a question, you better be ready to answer the question, or else I know that you just turned the thing on, you went and walked your dog, and you're ignoring what's happening. So just like running any classroom, a teacher is going to have a way to run a classroom if you don't want to have your webcam on. I totally understand that. I work with lots of people that put like Band-Aids on their webcam and all kinds of crazy stuff. Then they have that box of Band-Aids next to their tinfoil hats for when it gets really late at night, and then they're all taken care of. So we get it. You don't want us to see you. That's all right. I was born with this face. I haven't wanted people to see me for years. It's totally fine. But you do need to interact when we ask you a question, and we are going to do it randomly if there's someone like me, because that's the way I am. So what else do you got for us, Clara, that you need to throw out there, and we're going to do what we can to answer it?
How can people get Chromebooks if they need one?
So how do people get Chromebooks if they need a Chromebook, Dr. Allman?
So the best way to do that is to call 742-6200, which is South High School's general number. Ms. Bird will answer the phone, and she will ask you a few questions about what you need, and then she will relay that information into a spreadsheet, which is connected to the district, and the district will work to get you what you need. And there are separate processes. There's one process for Chromebooks, and there's one process for connectivity. I can tell you right now that if you're already connected, there's probably not an option to bump your speed up, but if you have no connection, we are in partnership with GCI to get you connected. And then in a very few scenarios where you're out of a GCI service area, that's where we would have to rely on hotspots. We don't have as many of those this year because it's far more economical to go the GCI route to have a modem put in, but again, 742-6200, and we'll try to get you set up. And they are rushing right now to try to get as many devices out as they can. The other thing to be aware of is after we submit your info, at some point you'll get an email or a robocall that will tell you when your device is being delivered, and they are delivering those using buses, and they're doing regional deliveries. So they will tell you what crossroads the bus is going to be arriving to and at what time, and then you can pick up your device in that way.
Cool. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Bria, what was that phone number again?
I don't have that phone number.
You don't have that phone number? I know that phone number. Grace, what's that phone number?
I was gonna write it down, but he went too fast.
I was going to write
Yeah,
it
he
down.
goes
Just
too
go too
fast.
fast. Clara, what was that phone number?
It was 742-6200.
742-6200 for all of your technology needs. If you're a South High School student or parent needing a Chromebook or a connection, 742-6200. Fantastic. Everyone's doing a great job paying attention. See, you're all prepping for tomorrow in class. He's got the cards again. All right, so Bria, I'm going to kick it over to you for a question. Hit us up. What are we getting from the Instagraminations?
So I just have one that I think needs to be addressed still. It says, could you go over the 3-class quarter system and explain why they chose to use that model?
Sure, the 3-class quarter system and why they chose to use that model. So here's what I'm going to say. The explanation of what that looks like is this. You're going to go to school for 3 classes for 8 weeks, which is normally what we call a quarter. But you're doing 3 classes instead of 6. And so you're going to put the 6-class time work into those 3 classes. So we're going to give you a full semester credit. Because, when this all kicked into high gear after spring break last year, right, how many of you loved trying to juggle the needs of 6 teachers in 6 classes on a daily basis from home? How many of you loved it? Just it was your favorite thing in the world, right? No, it wasn't our favorite thing in the world either. And we know it was pretty stressful. And a lot of us have kids, and we saw them wanting to kill us as teachers. Not fun, right, as parents and teachers. So, I think it's a good idea, right, so that you only have to worry about the 3. You can focus in on what you need to focus in on those 3 classes. Take them for 8 weeks. Get 16 weeks worth of credit, or I guess 9 weeks, get 18 weeks worth of credit. That's pretty phenomenal. And so I think that's the why, but again, that's so far over my pay grade on making those decisions that's a big assumption. Dr. Allman, you want to let us know, is the reason for that 3-class quarter system in order to be less of a burden on students?
Precisely. So just to expand on that a little bit, that decision was made at the school district level. So once we started building our schedule, we were following their lead. And that decision was made at the district level back in mid-June. At the final school board meeting, and that was in response to a lot of the parent survey feedback that said students were overwhelmed with 6 courses. So they wanted to just simplify life, hopefully for students and parents, allow you to focus on less at one time but still get the same amount of credit and in theory the same amount of hours of instruction, and that's why they went to that model. I know there has been a question about what do we do in the quarter where we don't, for instance, have a math or an English or science or other course, and there will be instructional tools or modules that are in Canvas and on other sites that will help sort of bridge the gap between those courses. I didn't say this in my prepared remarks, but for 9th and 10th graders coming in, they'll at some point take a diagnostic assessment called iReady, and that gets associated with modules to build their skills up and also to bridge those gaps. And then in math and science, students will take a test called ALEX PPL. It's the same test that is used to place students in math courses at most undergraduate universities. It's again a diagnostic tool. It identifies math skills and it ties those to tutorial modules, and students will have continuous access to those tools if they have an identified need for those tutorial services. And then teachers, I think, will also begin to consider ways to basically send students off from first quarter with kind of an anticipatory set for third quarter, so that it's not strange when they pick up where they left off.
Cool. Fantastic. So, Kate Matheson is jumping in there, and she is throwing the hard balls, the fastballs. We're ready to rock and roll. She's got a knocker of a question for you there. Will you read that question out to us, Grace, so that we can get a kick on what that question is from Kate?
Yeah, she wants to know how often risk levels will be evaluated, and if it's safe to say we will be on high risk in no in-person classes for the entire first quarter.
Were you able to catch that one, Doctor?
Nope.
All right, so Kate's asking this question of how often will the risk factors be assessed, right? And so that's really out of our control completely. That has to do with the city, and it's that rolling number, right, is when you have a 14-day stretch, what was the amount of new cases popping up in that 14-day stretch? So that's how the risk assessment is determined. And so then the follow-up question that she had that I'll kick over to you, Doctor, is that is it safe to assume perhaps that we could be looking like this for the entirety of first quarter?
It is certainly possible. I think that it's been heavily suggested by both the mayor and the superintendent, as well as in some of the media outlets locally. But that said, in this environment with this level of uncertainty and cases being very dynamic and people taking different precaution levels depending on that case number, if we were to fall below 30 cases on a 14-day rolling average, I can see a scenario where we would start to consider loosening up. The last time I looked, we were at 54 on a rolling 14-day average, so 24 cases above the minimum at which we would need to be to get back to an in-person model. So I know that's kind of a non-answer, but the thing to be looking at really is the daily and the 7-day average, because the more times you see a number under 30 in the single day and the 7-day rolling average, the more that 14-day rolling average starts to come down. The reason they're looking at the 14-day average is it's a little bit more predictive of what's going to happen over a 2-week period. So I would say, to get right back directly to the question, that I think we can predict 2 weeks at a time. And that's why at this point, at least until after Labor Day, I would say that we're in the distance model. And then around September 7th, which is that Tuesday we would return from Labor Day, people will be checking that average. And I think everybody's paying attention to the same number. And I'll echo the district communications. I know masks have become a little bit of a political thing, but anything we can possibly do to get the case numbers down in Anchorage means we get back to school faster. Teachers and kids can be in classrooms. We can be going to football games and doing all those things we like to do and return to routine. So everybody just needs to do what they can, and hopefully we can get back to normal.
Yep. And I'm going to kick it over here, and then I'm going to brush up on a couple things I see popping in. But we're going to close this up pretty soon because y'all have been sticking with us a long time. So I'm going to hit it 1, 2, 3. Clara, you have anything else for us? Bada-boom, 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 bada-boom.
Who can students talk to for guidance if they're registered for virtual school? Is it still their guidance counselor?
Yeah, so that's a good question. If someone signed up for virtual school, who do they talk to if they don't know what's going on? Do they talk to their normal counselors, Dr. Allman?
That's a good start. And then I know that ASD Virtual is still putting the final touches on their schedule. So it is possible that once that schedule gets finalized, which is supposed to happen tonight, and you log in tomorrow, you should see the 3 courses that you're in, especially if you're a full-time ASD Virtual student. I would say the question you can ask counselors is what courses were requested, to make sure that what was requested and what was scheduled matches. And so we'll need to be a liaison between South High School and the director of ASD Virtual, who is Carol Boatman. And she has been working with us, especially throughout this morning, to try to get those things ironed out so that kids have a set number of classes and the Canvas shells that go with them, or sorry, the Apex platform or eDynamic platform that goes with them.
Yep, fantastic. Okay, so, and just to brush up on some of that stuff that's coming in too, just as a reminder as we go through this, just like last time, folks, things are changing on a daily basis. Some systems are working, going great. Then it hits a roadblock and we got to switch something and change something. I got 3 calls just as we were prepping for this show from tech folks saying, hey, this just happened, this just happened, this just happened. Just be aware. All right, things like this take time. This is logistics craziness. Clara, anything else for us?
Yeah, if people still haven't gotten their things out of their lockers, will they be able to? And if they forgot the combination, how can they get that?
Well, okay, as far as forgetting combinations for a locker, guess who has all those numbers? We have all those numbers with security. They're on top of it, and they've actually cleaned everything out, so it's not locked in a locker. We got it all in bags and tried to hand it out earlier this year. Not sure if anything was kept after that, but what I will do, instead of trying to get an answer out of somebody today, I'll tell everybody out there, we're going to be back once a week with this same crew talking about some of these questions, both for the local level and the state level. So make sure you're checking in with wolverineden.org. We will be sending out the times for that weekly show because that hasn't been set in stone yet, but these 3 wonderful ladies are all producers on that show this year, and they're going to be waking up super early to start their writing and make it happen, and we'll get those questions answered. So anything you're putting into the chat right now, anything you're putting into southvote.com right now, we're going to get to those on our next episode and make sure those get answered up, and that will happen within the first 2 weeks of school, and then it'll be on a weekly basis and we'll be rolling. So if you're not already, you should be following at the Den, correct? I'm not Instagraminarian, so I don't always know. What do they need to be following to get that time, Bria?
It's at SAHS The Den.
At SAHS The Den. So if you're an Instagram person, go ahead and follow that, and you'll get a schedule on when this show is going to be coming back. So that's kind of the best answer, is that I don't know if your stuff's still here that was in your locker, because we had that opportunity to get that earlier, but I'm going to go back and get an answer on that, and we're going to put that out on at SAHS The Den. So if you're the one who asked that question, you better be following so you can get that answer. We'll get that to everybody.
I can tell you it's still in the locker.
Still in the locker. That's fantastic. But we don't have a day yet on when they're going to be able to come grab it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. So we will get that to you. Grace, kicking it over to you. Do you have anything else that's like detrimental to society if we don't answer it right now?
Yeah, a lot of parents are wondering how they can have access to their kids' Canvas through Canvas Observer, if they can get logged into that.
Yep. So I saw a link come from I have a sophomore here at South Anchorage High School who's doing the in-school model, and one of her teachers, I can't remember which one it was, actually sent out the link to show folks how to sign up for their Observer account. My guess is that when you go in tomorrow during your student Zoom time for that kind of opening space, that'll probably be part of what gets talked about in that introduction. And if it isn't, it's going to be in the next newsletter that comes out from Dr. Allman with the exact link that allows you to go in and sign in, because each teacher gets a little bit of a different link so that you're going directly to that specific course. And that'll be kind of touched on and based on as we go through it. But I would say some information might come in those Zoom meetings tomorrow, and if not, you'll probably get a mass email from Q saying, hey, click me and you can observe your child, and it'll be fantastic. And so that was one that kept repeating. Bria, anything else over on the social meds?
I have one more we got from Instagram for Dr. Almond, and it says, why are the classes being staggered for quarters 1 and quarters 3 rather than just having the same classes run for quarters 1 and 2 and then switching the next 3 classes for quarters 2 and 4?
So Dr. Allman, that's a really good question. Why have we taken a semester class, cut it in half, and made it 1 and 3 instead of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4? What is the basis for that process?
So part of the challenge is that we wanted to keep first semester courses during first semester rather than offering an entire year, and that's because of the hope for returning to in-person classes and returning to a somewhat normal model starting in January, which would be much more difficult because we would be putting things all out of order. The other issue is that we had to rebuild a lot of this content to put on Canvas, and so teacher teams worked all summer to put that content into Canvas to support teachers as they were coming back, and we had to prioritize semester 1 courses. And in phase 2 and phase 3 of that development, then the semester 2 courses will be built. So those are the 2 primary reasons that it was chopped up that way. The other thing that I'd like to say is that if we were going to stack courses first and second quarter and make that an entire year of instruction, every student would have an 8-month break from any sort of content between December and the following August. And so that 8-month gap for the powers that be seemed to be a less desirable option than just a 4-month gap, which would either be summer or that off quarter, or I guess I should say, about a 9-week gap in the school year, 3-month gap at the end of the school year. And I know there was a question about AP, so I'll go back to that just really quick. For the AP courses, I did talk to the regional director, who is over our region and test fees and the like. She said that there would not be a penalty from withdrawing from the test, so that you're safe to go ahead and sign up for the test, so that we can order those. And then in AP Classroom, which every AP teacher has access to, the folks who designed some of the online tutorial material for AP classes have posted those videos and tutorial information, and that's consistently available to students. And even better, they've taken some of those lessons that lasted a half an hour or 45 minutes, and they've built them into kind of 15-minute quick hitters, so that if you know you have something you want to review, you can watch that quick 15-minute video, and you have access to that during your AP course or between the 2 parts of that AP course.
Good answer. These are good answers. We're having a good time, folks. Anything else from the gallery?
There are a bunch, but they're smaller ones that we can hit on another day.
Cool. So we got a bunch of small questions we're going to collect the answers for. We're going to throw that out both on Dr. Allman's newsletter on the weekly. We're going to throw it out on at SAHS Den, the Den, just to make sure. So we don't want to end up anywhere weird. And then everyone can join us back here at wolverineden.org on our next show, which we will announce the time at that point. Dr. Allman, you got anything else for the folks back home?
I would just say we're really looking forward to getting reconnected tomorrow. I know there's been challenges. We're doing everything we can to make sure we have a really good place for your kids to come back to. I think I speak for most teachers when we say we really do miss kids and we can't wait till we can get back to normal with them. So we're looking forward to seeing you, and keep the questions coming, and we'll do our best to get you good information on all of those outlets that we've covered tonight.
Fantastic. Hey, everybody back home, thank you so much for joining us. It's been awesome to see you through a lens once again. I want to thank all the teachers and the APs and everyone else who was on the chat tonight answering questions. It was super bomb. I want to thank the crew, because the crew is always awesome to join us. They do a lot of hard work to get here, and they're going to be working really hard this year on top of reading all kinds of journalistic theory and fun stuff like that, so it's kind of exciting. But mostly, thank everybody at home. Thank you, Dr. Allman, for kicking us all those good answers. This is not an easy place to come into and take the grilling, so I really appreciate him joining us and doing what needs to happen. Welcome back. It's time for 2020, 2021. It's going to be a great time. Welcome back to South, and take care of yourselves.